Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Alien Addict on a beardless evening. Because it is a beardless evening, because I've got no beard. Long story, but anyway, without further ado, let's get on with this because we've waited long enough. You've been spoon-fed some clickbait that says I've seen all 6 pictures. It's got my logo there because it's my channel, but I've not actually seen them. But we've got the guy on who has. Without further ado, let's bring on the panel. BlackStar Paranormal, how are you diddling, my lad? You all right?
Fine, sir. Yeah, just getting a little drink. Yeah, I was disappointed. I thought you saw all 6 too. I thought you had them.
I know you did. I know you did.
That's why I'm here, man.
The link will be in the description for the presentation that is going to happen tonight for people, anybody to use, courtesy of Stu. And also, your link is in the description. I'm going to put that out right now because you do so much great work on this channel and you've helped me out so much. So everybody, BlackStar Paranormal, the channel link is in the description. No videos yet, though. But without further ado, Lee.
Hiya.
How you doing, my lad? You're looking amazing with that
good, mate.
Flourishing beard.
You look ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm gonna say hold it for just a bit after the before you call something.
Yeah. You did a hard tea.
I know you did. Rich Giordano. How you doing?
He's here too?
He is.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Oh, you didn't see these? Ah,
I've not
that's
seen
what got
them.
me here.
No, I know.
That's why I'm here.
You said that you actually asked me. Said, have you seen them? I said, no, I've not seen them.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was just testing. Just testing you.
But here's the guy. No, I can't wait either. I'm just going to say to the audience that's watching this live, I will try and look at the chat, but just it's going to be hard because I'm going to be kind of like balls deep in this.
I'm going to bring a window up so I can look at it.
Yeah, could you help me out, Lee, if there's something in the chat that you need to you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to call you Professor with your new look.
Yeah. Well,
did you dye it?
Did I dye it?
It looks
no,
like
it's this light. I've turned the light off so it's darker. It is ginger.
Oh yeah, it's real.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gingerish. Anyway,
it's very dapper.
Thank you.
It looks like a musketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes. A magician, musketeer, definitely.
It feels like a slapped ass. It feels like we've got 108 people already in, so we best get on with this.
Maybe I'll grow one.
That's what she said.
I am Stu Little.
Hey,
welcome to the show.
Me. How you doing?
You're very welcome. And it's quite a thing. You're Scottish.
Yes, from the West Coast.
Stu, it's been how many days now since I spoke to you?
It's nearly a week.
Nearly a week, and
couple of days, 5 days at least.
I was telling these beautiful men here that we have spent about 5 hours on the phone now, and you spent about 2 days doing a presentation. But before we get on with any of that, I want the story that you originally told me on the phone.
So we're starting from the beginning then.
Yeah, we got to get a little bit of a build up, you know, get people's nipples.
Foreplay.
Okay.
Erect. Right. Just say erect. It's fine.
We'll go. Ready?
I'm ready, Stu. We are ready.
I'm hard.
Right, okay. Right. Well, I'm Stu. I've been a photographer and a filmmaker headed for 30 odd years now. And when I was at the beginning of my career, back in I think it was 93, I had to take negatives or canisters of film up to the Daily Record on the train, and for myself and another photographer. And at that point, when we were waiting to get the images developed up there to see if they wanted them, I got shown this thing, all these lovely 6 images.
What year was this, Stu, though? 'Cause
It was I would say it was 3 years after the actual Calvine photo was taken, and it would have been roughly the autumn time. I was about 18, 19 at the time. I'm 48 now. So it was like definitely within the first year or two of my career as a press photographer, because I always sort of classed that time as a sort of fake it to make it part of my career, because I had no clue what I was doing half the time. I literally winged it for the first 2 or 3 years until I actually sort of went and qualified for a year down in Sheffield, and then experience after that. So yeah, it's a long time since I've seen these negatives, but it's not something you forget easily. And I've always been into UFOs. Like even as a kid, I would probably say 7, 8 years old, watching Close Encounters on the TV like most people, and that kind of started the ufology hobby, and reading up on it and watching you guys and all that kind of stuff.
So you turn up to get some photos developed at where was it? The place that these photos were at?
It was the original Scottish Daily Record building. For those who know Glasgow, the Daily Record building was quite a dominant building, and it sat on the north side of the River Clyde at Anderson Quay, and it was a sort of rectangular, maybe I think 10, 12 floors high building. It was quite big for Glasgow at the time. There's since been way bigger buildings built, and it was one of these places that I used to get the train up, but if you were driving, you would cross the Kingston Bridge and you would see it on the left-hand side. So it was kind of a bit of an iconic building, and they did the Scottish Daily Record and Sunday Mail. So I would, like on that occasion, I was driving, but I didn't have a car. So I got the train up, and then Glasgow has a little subway set up. So got the subway out to the nearest station, and then just walked to the Daily Record. And the thing is, when you're like 18, 19 and haven't seen much of this kind of stuff, it was very exciting to get in sort of behind the scenes, see how the sausage was made at the Daily Record and whatnot. And you didn't always get upstairs. Sometimes you handed stuff in and you were kept downstairs. But on this occasion, because I was bringing up another photographer's negatives to get developed, and he was actually freelance still, but a shift guy for the records. He actually did shifts for them. That alone got me up the stairs and basically hanging around to see what the picture editor thought of those shots. It was a siege or something. We photographed a pair of us.
So you're in the room, and am I right by saying you were waiting and you just looked at the wall, and there, what did you call it? The print?
It was just basically, it was a door, it was a wall as well, but it was a door just off of what was the dark rooms from what I remember, and it was near the picture desk, or at least what I thought was the picture desk. I'm pretty sure it was the picture desk, and a lot of the building's quite open plan, as it tends to be in newsrooms, so that you can interact with people easily. So what they had was just loads and loads and loads of pictures, like celebrities. You would see Billy Connolly. There was like Oliver Reed was up on the wall, I seem to remember. There was just loads and loads of pictures. And there was one picture that caught my interest. And it's what I call, but I think other people call it as well, a rag print, which is somebody's torn up a piece of photographic paper in the darkroom, in the dark, so that it's not being exposed to the light, and has printed a picture on it. So two sides of it, sort of top left and top, are sharp, but the right hand side and the bottom are just ripped, because basically it's probably been ripped, quartered. So it's probably like, I would guess maybe a 20 by 16 inch bit of photographic paper that was ripped up so they could just do a test print. So the guy that was there at the time, who I do know his name, but I'm not going to mention it just from a privacy point of view, because he is still alive. He sort of took note of the fact that I was like, "What's that? You know, tell me about it." and he started sort of telling me the story of where it came from, and we got chatting in that, and then he said, "Do you want to see the other images?" And I'm like, "There's other images?" And literally at the back of this print, they had sellotaped a little sort of acetate neg strip that was cut off of what would normally be like an A4 folder size set of strips, and in it were the 6 negatives. Now, they were duplicates. They were copies of basically the original shots, and I'll go into why they were duplicates in a little while. But one of the things that he said, I don't know if you want to start calling up some of the images, but the first
I'm
one,
going to say, do you want me to bring it up? I'll bring it up for you.
Yeah, if you bring up the first one with the camera, he was quite adamant, because I like being a gearhead at that point and like being all about the equipment and that. I asked, what did the person photograph it on? And he said it was a Canon AE1 program. So that is supposedly the type of camera that the said person who made the image or images actually used. Now, the one thing that you don't see in the Calvine image is that it's a crop. There's more to it. Now, I've done a few mock-ups for you tonight, but it's based upon the Calvine print that Craig Lindsay gave to David Clark. But there would be more to it, and there was more to it. There's a little bit more fence line, a little bit more tree on the left. I seem to remember on the bottom right-hand side where the image gets darker, there was like the corner of a bush, and that was kind of how it actually looked. So that was the camera, supposedly, that the photographer that took it used, and I would guess it just from looking at the duplicates, it was a standard lens, which kind of makes sense if they were out hiking, because you wouldn't want to be carrying a hell of a lot of camera gear, because I mean these things were solid metal and plastic and weighed a fair amount just on their own, so you wouldn't be putting a huge lens on them, I wouldn't have thought. But, I mean, that's speculation and guessing. But the guy who told me the story basically said he was pretty sure it was a Canon AE1 program, which was available at that time, getting a wee bit on in its age. At that point, I think 89, Canon started to bring out their autofocus EOS range, EOS. So they were moving on. I think the last of the FD lenses, which is what you can see here, it's called an FD fit, and the electronic autofocus ones were called EF lenses, or still are. And the last of the FD fit cameras was the T90, and you can see the progression from the T90 to the Canon EOS 1. I had a couple of T90s at one point, so because I used Canon. But yeah, it was a capable little camera, and it had aperture priority. That's where the program part of it came into it. So you could basically set the shutter speed and let the aperture fly and do what it wanted to do based on the exposure meter in the camera. And these SLRs were very simple compared to what we're used to now with digital
Stu,
cameras.
Do I just click the arrow when it's ready to get to the next slide?
So yeah. Do you want to move on?
Yeah. So, boys, have you got anybody got any questions about the camera or anything like that at the moment?
So obviously the guy that took these photographs was supposed to be a chef, wasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So would I be right in thinking then for this time, this doesn't really massively have anything to do with it, but to sort of paint a picture, that would have been a good choice camera for someone that was maybe not massively into photography, but what a good bang for buck choice rather than whatever the new Canon is.
The AE1 at that time was definitely what I would class as an amateur camera or semi-pro at best. I mean,
consumer,
kind of consumer-based camera. But some professionals did use them because they had a similar vibe. You've got to remember at that point, Nikon ruled, or Nikon as they say in America, ruled the roost. So the FM2 and the F3 and then the F4 were the cameras that got used more than anything else. So the Canon E1 was kind of similar to the FM2, and it was very similar, although a little bit bigger than the Olympus OM1 that was popular at the time.
So this is the one that took the photos.
From what I'm told, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember it well because I had at that point 2 Canon F1s, which were the professional models, and like slightly upgraded from they had a motor drive on it and a grip and things like that. Whereas you could get a motor drive for this that would screw onto the bottom to the tripod, the 1/4 20 thread little screw fit in the bottom. You could screw on a motor drive. There was a little cap that you took off and it connected it to the spindle inside the film canister area. You could wind it on from there. So I think it was like, memory serves, like 2, maybe 3 frames a second or something. So
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you...
Sure.
Go ahead. I'll ask later.
I was just going to say, he could have had a motor drive on, but just from the way the photos have been shot, it looks as if he's cranked the handle to move the frame on. So, right, sorry, what were you going to say?
What does it mean when it says prime lens?
Prime lens is basically a fixed focal length lens. This is, in modern parlance, we call these nifty 50s. They're actually really sought after now, second hand, because a lot of video guys are getting these and converting them to use with Sony cameras or Black Magics, that kind of thing, and converting them to cinema cameras and putting sort of ratchet notches on them so that they can follow focus and different things. So if you've got one of these, they go for a pretty penny, I think, in eBay these days. But it's a fixed focal length lens compared to a zoom lens that would go from, let's say, a 35 to 70 or 70 to 200 millimeters focus distance. So it was the standard lens that you got with a camera. It wasn't until the autofocus cameras came out that they started to market it with a 35 to 70 zoom lens. So you bought a camera, you got one of those.
I will say, guys, that all this presentation that Stu's put together will be linked in the description. Any channel is welcome to use it. It's Stu's took great care in doing this for my channel, but we've been chatting about this, and it's like this should be shared out. So, Stu, shall I move on to the next one?
Yep. Now, this is the film supposedly that the photographer used, which is it's a chromogenic film. It's Ilford XP1, and what made it unusual is a black and white film, and what made it unusual was the fact that it went through color film chemistry, C41 chemistry. So I actually used this professionally back in the day because I was, quite frankly, a lazy son of a bitch and did not want to basically develop my own and process my own negatives. I did it for a while. It was a pain in the neck. Whereas with this stuff, basically you could take it into your local boots or your local chemist shop, and a lot of these places by that point had automatic processing machines, and 5 minutes and the stuff comes out the other end dry, and you can basically, I used to pay like £1.50, like about $2-3 or whatever, to basically get the negs devved, and you would cut them up and take them into the news desk in my local paper, and they would pick what they wanted from them. So it was a really flexible film. I know there's a lot of speculation to, like, the person taking the photos must have been really into photography, but Ilford were really pushing this stuff. The XP1 was like 1987 or whatever through to 1990, and then they brought out the XP2. So, 91 they brought out the XP2. So in 1990 it would have been probably the XP1. I can't see them getting a hold of the later version, the XP2, but it was roughly the same kind of stuff. The XP2 just had a better latitude and a better grain structure. So it was a lot for a black and white film with a high ISO of 400. It was quite a fine grain structure on it, and also you could push the film. So I could push it to 800 or 1600, which you just don't need to do nowadays with digital cameras because they're so sensitive to light. But back in the day, you needed a fast lens and fast film if you were in low light conditions.
Can I just stop you there a second? So,
sure.
Because I was watching Disclosure Team before that. I did try to comment in the description, but for some reason it didn't come up on the channel. But anyway, they mentioned that he was talking about the scratches and it was color. The photographer, the guy who knew something about photography,
Yeah.
he said he believed it was. Am I getting that right? That he said it was a color photograph.
Well, what I saw was, and we'll get on to that next, was a duplicate of these negatives. But what it was a color print. Basically, he would put through. If you go to the fourth slide quickly.
Yep. Yeah, because we need to get through these slides as well, mate, because we've got about a 2-hour show.
Yeah, keep going.
So that's the film, yeah.
That's the film that they used to duplicate it onto. We'll come back to that. Go to the next one. Right. Basically, camera, XP1 on the left-hand side. In the middle, what the Daily Record had at the time was, I believe, Durst enlargers, industrial-sized enlargers that they would do their prints on. And they were colour enlargers. So just below that sort of white box, there's a tray and a negative carrier. You would put your 35mm negative in there, and then a light that's inside that white box would project down, and where you can see the little sort of red filter at the bottom of it, that would then project through a lens onto the surface. And once you were sort of lined up, sharpened up and everything, you would then put in your photographic paper. So they used Kodak resin-coated paper. And that's quite, Disclosure Team have put a lot of information out about that. So it's color paper that's been used, but it was a black and white negative that it was from. And if you look at the top, the other box at the top of the machine, you can see the cyan, magenta, yellow dials. So when it comes to doing black and white, that they kind of become pointless, and you would just put a filter below it to kind of work out the grade and the sort of the depth and the contrast and of the actual image. So it would be a black and white photo that was printed onto color paper. So it would give it a little color tinge, and it kind of looks as if it maybe had a little bit of a sepia vibe to it from what I saw of the close-ups and that. But you can also see some chromatic aberration in the fencing and that. And they estimated that came off the lenses. One thing that I remember and I noted just looking at their image, and obviously I've only been dealing with the low-res stuff that's come off of Twitter, is that whoever made that print didn't focus the lens on the enlarger properly. So the actual craft is ever so slightly out of focus compared to what you saw on the negatives, even the duplicates. So you're not getting a true detail. And probably that's, I mean, Nick Pope's recreation, which I thought was only done a few years ago, but it seems it was done quite a number of years ago. It's probably actually closer to that in detail than was it an AI enlargement they did of the craft, Lolly?
The one that I sent you was what Lee sent me. Somebody on Twitter did that. Just that, you're not talking about that one that was done in AI?
Yeah. So basically, that's just a nonsense. The computers just got it wrong big time. It's not what it looked like at all. And the black mark that's in the middle to the right, that's actually a dust mark that was in one of the negatives.
So we could tell Lee now, mate, because you were saying before. So you got in touch with me through me trying to debunk it, saying it was a rock. And
yeah.
then I put the little 6-minute video out and that's the one that you commented on because you'd seen Lee's
recreation
that you sent me on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Lee, ready to get your ego scratched. I would say Lee's really spot on. I think
Cheers.
what he did, the location might not be 100%, but it's as close as anybody's probably got. I know a couple of people have done it. You've done it, Lee, and another guy called Paul, but his is not anywhere near as good as what yours was. And that kind of just, I got it at that point, you know, it looked good. So I think you did a good recreation there, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thank you.
So I want to get back to some of the camera stuff, but I know the
Right.
audience are dying to.
I know.
About, so can I get to the what you saw when you went through these images? So this is
Right.
number one.
Let's start that. Okay. So this is effectively my recreation of the first frame. Now, one of the things, and I was watching Disclosure Team as well, and I think there was speculation as to whether the negatives were photographed in order. Now, if we can just jump back one ever so slightly for a minute,
Yep.
Ollie, if you don't mind. In fact, go back another one just to quickly explain. Right. There's two ways of duplicating negatives. I saw duplicates. They were AGFA films, so they were actually color film. So they were actually duplicates of a black and white film that can get processed in color chemistry onto color film. Don't know why they did that, but they did it. So there's two ways of doing it. You can either use a color reversal film, which is effectively like a slide film, and then you have to rephotograph the slide film back into a negative. I don't think, I initially thought they would have done it that way, and then sort of my memory got jogged and thought, no, that's no way. If we move on to the next slide, this is probably how they did it in copying it. And I'll go into why they copied it as well in a wee second. So they've taken the Alfred XP1, they will have made prints, made sure that they were numbered and they know the order of them. Then they would have put them on, they'll have had a copy stand in the picture desk or in the darkroom area. Every newsroom had a copy stand for copying what they used to call collect pictures. So if somebody died or it was a prominent figure that was in an accident and they didn't have a picture of them, and they would basically get a picture of a member of family, take it, copy it, and then give them the image back. So a copy stand was quite a normal, useful, everyday thing for a newsroom to have and a picture desk. So they would have put the 6 images onto, now again, just to reiterate, those are the cropped prints based on Craig Lindsay. They would have been slightly more rectangular for the 35mm shape, and they were then rephotographed onto Agfa Color Pro. At the time, we mainly used Fuji, Kodak. I don't know why the Agfa Color Pro was used. I've got a suspicion that maybe they were getting courted by Noritsu, who in turn had a link with Agfa for getting automatic processing machines in that you would see in like Boots and stuff like that, and Walgreens for the American audience. So that's kind of how I think they basically made the copies that I saw. So if you've got a good lens and the images are printed well, you're going to get a good sharp reproduction from that. So if we move on to the first frame. So the reason why I'm saying that is because, as far as I'm led to believe,
Stu, 1 second, can I just stop you there?
Sure.
This is not the original rag print that you saw, though, is it? The original rag print you saw, the one that's been printed, the one that is not printed, the one that's out now. That was the original rag print you saw.
No, I saw what I saw. I'll be honest with you. I think it was frame 4.
Okay.
which we'll see further down the line. And it was also printed full frame.
Right.
So,
okay.
and it was smaller. And that's why what happened was I obviously started asking questions. The member of staff obviously must have been keen on UFOs as well, knew the story and started telling me all about it. He then dug out the negatives. They were then put onto a light box. I initially very briefly looked at them through what we call a magnifying loupe. And then up at the Daily Record at that point, they had like what they call an RGB viewer. And it's basically, again, you put the negatives in and you can dial up or down the colors for color negatives, or you can just switch off the color for black and whites. And you can increase or decrease the brightness. You've also got the ability to zoom in and analyze the print for sharpness. So on a Saturday, you would get the sports guys coming in and checking that their sports shots of the Glasgow Rangers or Celtic or whatever were nice and pin sharp, so, and maybe the picture editor would just check before the stuff went off, because all this is, you got to remember in 1990, Photoshop had literally just launched in America, and it wasn't even called Photoshop initially, and negative scanners were exceptionally expensive. So when they printed a newspaper, what you were sending down was the print. You would actually do a print. So the picture editor would probably use this viewer, I would think, and we had one at college as well that allowed you to just flick through your images and zoom in and out them. So that's where I spent the majority of the 20 minutes that I got to look and got a close look at the craft. So the initial shot, frame one, there was no jet
airplane.
fighter. Yeah, it was just the craft. And obviously my interest was that thing in the middle. Now, it's sure as hell, based on like everybody's speculation in that, when you saw the negative in the middle, that looked like a craft, but I will say it looked man-made. My guess would be a stealth craft of some type somebody owns. The
When
Americans
you say
probably.
look man-made, and this is where I had when we had a conversation on the phone, I said to you, how about, because I said to you, listen, I think it's a rock.
Yeah,
I said that.
you did.
I said, I think it's a reflection of a rock. I think we've got, Professor Simon, who I love dearly, new friend of mine. It's a great channel. And we both kind of came up with, well, I think it was one of his viewers that sent him the debunk. And I had already sent these guys the debunk that I thought it was the same rock that somebody else had thought. So I thought we must have nailed that because everybody thinks this. But
no, you could see seam lines. You could see, I'm not going to say rivets as such, but you could
That's
see
what I'm
like
asking.
Indentations on the craft, more towards the left-hand side up top.
So why is it we see it so like, why is it we see it like this?
Because the print is out of focus. The actual print that was made that Craig Lindsay got is ever so slightly out of focus, and that's why you don't see as much detail on it.
Right.
Whereas,
what about the black smudge?
The black smudge, I'm pretty sure, is just debris from like it being printed or whatever.
Wait, you mean the smudge, all that grayness you see on the right bottom third?
Can you go into the closer shot?
Is that what you're talking about? That's how it gets darker?
The
what are you saying, Rich?
You're talking about a smudge. Where is it?
The whole craft is smudgier on that than it is in the duplicated negatives that I saw. So what happens is when you print on a manual print and an enlarger, even in an automatic machine, you've still got to focus the lens. There's still a lens involved and it has to be focused. And if it was done, and I don't think it was back in 1990, but if it was done with an automated machine, then the lenses were notorious for not working properly because they were autofocus. And it wasn't until second, third generation of these machines that they got better.
Can I show what you saw? What you saw when you looked through?
I'd like to leave that towards the end if possible.
Okay, keep the that's fair
Keep
enough.
suspense going. Right. So basically, do you not have the can I send you the close up of it then?
You could send, you can add it to this, but I can't put it to StreamYard and what you've already
Right.
done.
Hold on. Give me a second.
Moonlight with $1. You still have it up there, Ollie, covering up Lee.
He
I
deserves,
like
he
to
deserves
cover
it.
up Lee.
See if you go
Thanks,
to.
It looks like it. Huh.
See if you go to the slide after the Nick Pope recreation.
Okay.
I've actually got it there.
Stuart, there's a classmate of yours in the chat.
All right. Who's that?
Barry McKean.
Oh, yeah. He was a year above me at school.
Very nice. So what I'm taking away from this is that there does exist somewhere a much clearer image of this, and that the scruffing that we're seeing is from the reprint.
Yeah,
Right.
so you see how that's closer? It's out of focus, okay?
Yeah.
Ever so slightly, but enough to take away the detail that was there.
And there
So-
was detail.
And there was detail. I've tried to recreate it in a later shot, what I remember it being like, which we'll go to. But there was detail, right? If we go to
This is getting good now.
Just
yeah.
quickly before we move slides, just to the right of the arrow there, then, when you were on the original picture where you saw more detail, what was the white part? Because on there, when you see the on both sides, there seems to be like a white section where it's tapering off. Was that a detail that you saw?
it was lighter. There was like a light edge along like the edge of the craft. It wasn't like, see how it's quite dark there?
Mhm.
There was actually quite a defined light edge, and there was also lines coming from the left-hand point where that arrow is, drawing up to the middle. So you could see like what I would describe as, if you imagine like the SR-71 Blackbird, that kind of stealth paneling and off angle to reflect radar and stuff like that. Yes, you were at school with me, Barry.
Did it look like a hand
Thanks,
drum?
Barry. Love you.
We used to play golf as well, but anyway, that's another story. And so basically, you can basically see like the panels of the stealth craft. That's how I knew it was a stealth craft. And obviously at that time, you've got to remember there's quite a lot going on. In 1990, 2 days prior, Operation Desert Shield started because Iraq had invaded Kuwait. And then quite quickly after that, that turned into Desert Storm. 100 hours later, it was over and Saddam had been kicked out of Kuwait. But that was going on at the time. You had the fall of the Iron Curtain. So there was a lot going on with Russia, effectively falling apart. So the Americans were on sort of high alert from that as well. So there was a lot going on. And obviously Scotland, although far enough away, is not that far away from the likes of the Russian Federation, or what was the Soviet Union at the time. So this looked like a stealth craft. Another thing that was in my mind at the time
made no
was
noise. Yeah, it made no noise, right?
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
I wasn't there. But what was in my mind at the time was the year prior, almost not quite to the day, but just about, a guy called Chris Gibson, who worked as an engineer on an oil rig, observed, he didn't photograph, he eventually did a reconstruction of it, which you can easily find on Google. And basically, he saw a KC-135 refueling tanker and 2 F-111 stealth fighters basically covering a triangular / pyramidal shape craft. And that was flying back towards Scotland. So it made me think I was looking at that. That's kind of what went into my head. I'm looking at a stealth craft. I never for 1 minute thought it's ET. or anything like that. I knew it had
How
to
old?
be.
How old were you? How old were you though? You, I mean, you
I must have been
what?
just about 19, just turned 19 at that point. 18, 19.
If I was 19, I'd be like, that's aliens.
Yeah,
Right.
but I was into planes as well, because you've got to remember, I grew up, I come from Prestwick originally, which is just the town over, and like there's Prestwick Airport. Now, Prestwick Airport has a very complicated past. The last thing that they kind of got into trouble for or slammed for was the pilots staying at Trump Turnberry on, Trump making money out of the fact that the flights were getting refueled at Prestwick and they were going down to Turnberry to stay. And he was making a fortune off them. So that was sort of discovered during Trump's tenure as president. Prior to that, the CIA used to refuel their rendition flights. So when they went and got an Al-Qaeda prisoner or whatever and wanted to take them to a black site, whether that was Morocco or wherever, they would use Prestwick as a refueling point, and that became a sore point and a bit of a political fallout from that. It used to be a US Air Force base. The Royal Navy had HMS Gannet at one part of the base. It's now been taken over by Her Majesty's Coast Guard. So there's a lot going on in there, and the runway at Prestwick is pretty large. Now, we're going to look at Machrihanish in a little while, and the runways are pretty much equal in size, and Machrihanish is known for having quite a big runway. So
can we get to the second image?
Yep, move over to it. So I've always been into planes and stuff like that. So that, and my grandfather was the manager of Shell out at the airport. So I literally got to go out there on a Sunday afternoon when he was going out checking things and jump in and out of 747 Northwest Orients, Air Canadas, Pan Ams, all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. I literally got to walk along wings. I mean, stuff that you would not in a month of Sundays allow you to do now. But obviously, then health and safety wasn't really of a concern. Second image is the Craig Lindsay Calvine UFO print. Okay, so we've all looked at that. I've got my views to what the jet was, which we'll discuss later on, but at the moment it was predicted or speculated that it was a Harrier. I don't think it was, but we'll talk about that further. If you want to go to the third print, this is where things start to get a bit more interesting. Okay, this shot, the craft moves ever so slightly more to the right, and the jet is further along, and it's banking towards in a clockwise fashion. So it's banking away from the photographer, and as if it's going to circle the craft.
So that is, so was I right in what I was thinking about the original photograph then, that the jet is further away from like behind the craft, and it's coming back around to come in front of it?
It's hard to tell, but I would say it's either in front, slightly underneath, or it is behind. There's also a second jet, which we'll discuss in a wee second, that becomes more prevalent in the fourth frame. So basically, the guy has clicked off the shot that's now the Calvine photo that we all know and love, and the time that it's taken for the jet to move, however, 200-300 feet or whatever, it's literally a second. He's cranked the lever and clicked off another shot. Now, obviously, this is a recreation. I must say this. It's from my memory.
It's not real, people.
It is not real, okay? It's because the thing is, it would be in a 35mm format, and it's just not real. It's what I remember of it. But frames 3 and 4 are the two frames I have the
Stu,
clearest
I asked you this the other day,
memory of it.
and you were hazy on there. I said, did you notice the fence below and the tree? Did the camera kind of change?
The only thing that happened was he quite clearly moves his camera to the left. He pans to the left to obviously capture the jet. Because obviously, if this thing's static in the air, and I'm speculating here, if there's a jet fighter moving through frame, that's going to get his attention as well. And he'll want to try and capture both. So in the actual negatives, you saw a little bit more of the tree branches above, and you see a little bit more of the bush on the left at the bottom, and there's also like a bush, and you see a little bit more of the landscape in the distance. So this has been cropped into, whoever's printed this has cropped into it, so they have.
Right.
So do you want to move on to number 4, which is kind of what I call the money shot? Right. I've made the second jet deliberately faint, okay? But the first jet was a lot higher up. The craft has moved further over to the right, but what actually has happened is I don't think the craft actually would have moved. I think he's recomposed. Now, I obviously haven't moved the trees or the fence. So if you can imagine, again, this is a recreation, the trees would have changed. There would be more tree information, and you would see more of that bush on the left, okay? On the bottom right-hand side, just sort of at the, shall we say, 4 o'clock position, if you imagine the craft being in the middle of a clock, you can faintly see another jet coming in. And that's when he picked up the 2 jets. So that's the thing that people have been talking about.
You don't think these jets are Harriers, do you?
No. And the reason why I don't, which we can start talking about if you want, is the gentleman who told me this story, member of staff at the Scottish Daily Record, said that one of the primary reasons that they ended up not going to press with the image and it kind of got shut down is because a D notice was raised up by the MOD, and a D notice is basically a defence notice to say, you know, you're not allowed, it's classified, you're not allowed to do this. You know, you can ignore it at your peril, but generally speaking, it's a bad idea to ignore a D notice. So they got shut down on the basis that the jets, I believe, were actually tornadoes. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the Harrier was subsonic, so it was a lot slower than a supersonic plane. It only went about 700 miles an hour. So obviously, if it was escorting a stealth craft, they picked the slowest, one of the slowest jets to escort a stealth craft. The other thing is the Harrier doesn't have a very long flight time. I think it's around about 185 nautical miles or thereabouts.
It's very short.
Yeah. And that's to do with the fact that it's, you know, short VTOL, you know, it can take off from a static position. So
yeah, it lacks fuel capacity. And not to interrupt you, I just saw something in the chat.
No. I definitely want interruptions because I want you guys to ask him.
Yeah, to address. So it said, I think it was Josh and Artemis. It said, if it was top secret, there'd be more than one plane doing escort. Fun fact here: if it's escort technology, this is top secret government technology, and they're fielding it in public view, there will be no escort with it, because escort only draws attention. Escorts aren't something they use. It's not even something you'd have in a protective detail if it was over a classified or secure area, because they won't have anything else in the air because they're testing.
Yeah.
If it's something that's fielded, you're not going to field it with things that aren't similar to it. Especially.
But what I would say though is,
yeah,
I don't think Calvine was the area that they were testing this craft. My suspicion is it was going back to Macrahanish, and it might well have been that that's the point where the jets obviously joined them. But it's tricky to say. And the reason why they got the D notice is the following year, the Tornado, the Buccaneer got retired, and the Tornado moved up to RAF Lossiemouth. There's 3 RAF bases in Scotland. There's Lookers, Kinloss, and Lossiemouth. And Lossiemouth, along with Lookers, are like the rapid reaction to anything coming in from the east, from Russia or anything like that. So, from what I was told, they didn't want it being publicly advertised that these were tornadoes, effectively.
Who told you this?
So wait a minute. They're more worried about. So your understanding is they're more worried about the tornado than an unknown object in the air.
I think initially, yes. Personally, I'm just telling you what was told.
Oh
Personally,
yeah.
I would think they would be concerned with the big
The flying
triangular thing.
the flying diamond in the sky.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to jump back to Josh and Artemis, would they just let top secret tech fly around with that escort all the time? Absolutely all the time. If it's in a public zone, again, the more planes you have, the more it'll be noticed.
Yeah.
Unless it's for active engagement, target acquisition, or they're doing some kind of battle testing, and they wouldn't do that over land; they do it over sea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it actually makes a lot of sense if you understand.
Yeah, I mean,
protocol they put in place.
I get it. I mean, as Ollie and I,
well, that's not to you. That was to the question.
Ollie and I discussed this earlier, and I said to him, you know, there would have been if they were putting out 2 planes to go chase this thing, it would be 2 planes. It wouldn't just be a single plane. They always go in pairs.
Yeah. You have a
or more
engagement in a wing. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. To me, if we just think about the original photograph, and especially if you're saying that they were probably not Harriers and they were probably the rapid response jets, it makes more sense to me then that this wasn't a vehicle test and that those jets were sent out on reconnaissance. Surely that makes more sense than them to be testing this thing. And I mean, jets with it, especially when, like I say, I mean, again, I might just be making most of it up in my head when I'm looking at that photograph. But to my eyes, in that photograph, you had a plane which was further away from the target object that was going to loop around it, and that was essentially circling it. So I thought, what the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, and that's what they would do if they encountered it in the air. They would, try and hail it, try and probe it. They would put fast movers of some kind up to get in the way, which obviously if you have a quick response jet, whatever that is at that technology at that time. But escorting top secret tech, that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
That you draw as little attention as possible and you only field it in a secure location. I mean, that's protocol. And when those go up for testing, it is the only thing in the air because it is testing. You have to minimize the exposure. Like when they were testing the F-35, they did it overseas over huge swaths of American land, and nothing was allowed in the airspace. If you just watch the airspace of commercial traffic, you could see where they were testing things. Yeah. Right? I mean, I agree. The whole thing seems strange, but for this particular, addressing to the Josh and Artemis's question of why this works, because you have a $1 billion aircraft in testing in the air, you want nothing else up there.
Yeah.
Because it is in testing. You're not going to have another jet that's scrambled up for quick response that close to an unknown object unless it's there to engage, question, or threaten.
So Stu is saying this is a real object, just probably not a UFO, right?
Yeah,
that's what
it's
I
definitely
took from it.
It's definitely man-made. There's no way it was of alien nature. I mean, we've obviously all for the last few years been talking about the tic-tac UFOs and the gimbal, the fast mover and things like that. That's open for debate, but
Stu, you moved this out of frame purposely on Photoshop to represent something. But you didn't change the trees. What I'm wondering, did you move it out of frame? Did it move?
No.
From what I can gather, camera guy move?
The camera guy moved. As I said already, the trees and the fence, I haven't touched that. But that would have another duplicates. It was just too much work.
Wait, just to readdress, they said, so it makes no sense. And I get the respect. I appreciate that. If it malfunctions and goes down, the escort would be needed. Here's a real logical question. You have things that are potentially moving at supersonic speeds. What is an escort going to do? Everything is tracked on radar. Everything has telemetry. Everything has boxes that are moving. They have special ground response teams. They have choppers and helos. That's how they would do evac and show up for response. A jet does nothing. The only other jet you would see would be at the periphery of the area to secure and keep other aircraft out of the secured area. And so they don't field this stuff over populated areas.
So that makes more sense then that it was that it was there to intercept and to investigate?
I mean, we don't know. He saw a picture, and this is a copy or we're talking about a copy of a picture that he saw without detail, and something about that detail clearly leads Stu to believe this is man-made.
Yeah. It definitely. I mean, when I looked at it, it looked man-made. I mean, obviously, this is long before well, not that long, but like a year before, like X-Files and all that kind of stuff. And you know, when UFOs really came forward again. And so what I would say, I would agree with you, but the UK and the US, they call this the special relationship, but there
I'm
used
aware.
to be a lot of weird shit come out of Machrihanish. Now, Machrihanish, if you can you go to the map shot second from last, Ollie?
Yep.
Now, I know that if it is U.S. government technology, they will field it against allies first without them knowing what it is.
Yeah, I would say that would happen.
And again, that makes
Machrihanish-
sense that they would send up an interception.
Machrihanish is a base that's on the sort of bottom edge of the Mull of Kintyre. Now, if you look at the word Machrihanish and draw a line straight back over to the main Scottish land, I stayed in Ayr or Prestwick, you know, so we were in line with Machrihanish. So we used to, as a family, when I was a kid, we used to go down the beach on a Saturday night, and the sun had gone down, but you would still get that sort of twilight hue going on, and you get the last rays of the sun. Can you go down a bit, back down the map? Yeah. So what we used to see was, even though Arran was in the way, they used to have what I would assume to be stealth craft. And the reason why I'm saying that is because they obviously were using scramjet engines. So you would see the contrail and it would have these sort of unique sort of 3 or 4 dashes through them. And then there'd be a gap and then 3 or 4 dashes through them again. And they obviously used to fly out towards the Atlantic to the west, left-hand side, and they would then come over the top of Arran and then down what was left of the Firth of Clyde towards basically the Isle of Man and Ireland. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did a trip around Ireland and then out into the Atlantic or whatever. But we used to watch them regularly. It was almost like clockwork. It's a bit like Bob Lazar when he used to take his friends out to see the UFO at Area 51. Like it was a common knowledge thing that the Americans were testing stealth craft at Machrihanish. And as you can see from the line I've drawn, it's not that far. And there's no way, if this thing's like hypersonic, supersonic, hypersonic or whatever, or just generally fast, there's no way they're going to put jets with it. So it has to probably have been fast jets from RAF Lookers or Lossiemouth.
Well,
gone
again,
and had a wee look.
if it's Americans testing, again, it would be one. If we were testing, it's a thing called probing or penetration test. And the reason we would do it with an ally is because we have codes for the all clear. Hey, we're friends. We're just testing something. We do it to them. They do it to us. U.S. and Canada do it. And the reason we want to do it with a peer or near peer to test it against the most advanced technology we can. We always test it against ourselves first. New intelligence agents in the field, they're not fielded in hostile territory. They're fielded in Washington, D.C. or Chicago. And then after that, they'll go to London. And then after that, they go to Paris. And then they'll go to Timbuktu or wherever. You know, you have to develop it first. And that's part of the testing protocol, especially when you're talking about billions of dollars in development. It's just, it is what it is. You know, you can easily Google any of those facts.
The other thing is, I mean, obviously, nobody knows how much fuel any of these stealth aircraft could have, whether they had the ability to refuel in the air. But based upon what Chris Gibson saw, he saw a KC-135 refueling tanker. So it could well be they're putting these things out off of Machrihanish. They're flying them up the middle of Scotland, obviously past Calvine, and out towards the North Sea. And they could, you know, if these things are flying at Mach 9, 10 or whatever, I mean, it's going to be in Russian territory in no time. So they probably were probing the Balkan regions as well. It's hard to say. It's speculation.
They wouldn't go that far. They would just like so. This is 100% hypothetical, right? None of us know.
Yeah.
But I can speak to this. If they were testing advanced aircraft, they would do it exactly that. They would send it over a populated or semi-populated area that was definitely covered on UK's country's radar to see if it's stealth. See, did you pick it up? Not only that, allies are always somewhat soft enemies, even though they're allies, right? Like that also tests response time, and then they can say, hey, it's just the Americans, we're testing this piece of equipment. And they'll be like, you bastards, and they'll send one back and, maybe have somebody do a buzz by to, stop doing that.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Another thing that I was aware of, which again is kind of local knowledge, at Prestwick, near the airport, is what's called Atlantic House, and that is the air traffic control for the whole of the North Atlantic. So they cover literally a very vast swathe of the Atlantic, and obviously the whole of Scotland and that. And my great uncle worked out there. My cousin is currently out there. He's still working out there just now. But we had neighbours, and the gentleman I'm thinking of used to tell us that they would see tracks on their radar, and these things would be moving at a ridiculous speed and then go off the radar very, very quickly. And the gentleman I'm thinking of is actually the gentleman who was unfortunate enough to be the air traffic controller dealing with the Lockerbie bombing plane. So he was actually talking the plane in when it blew up and he lost contact. And it was obviously him, telling his supervisor that he'd lost the plane. So that started the whole Lockerbie disaster. So I
Stu,
would trust
can I,
what he said.
It's just what he said. Can I just take it over to GUFON, because he was going to ask a question earlier, and
Sure.
I was interested to see what he was going to say.
Oh, bro, I don't remember. I mean, I really don't. We've moved on. I don't know what I was going to say. I think you guys already talked about it. Like, why would they fly over a populated area if this was military? Why would they risk that? Doesn't make sense.
Well, so think about it this way. So when did this happen? In 93, right?
90.
90.
I saw the duplicates in 93. So it was 3 years after.
That's what you're saying.
So 90. So it happened in 1990.
4th of August. I
Okay.
believe.
So SR-71 Blackbird, which is the U.S.'s super duper spy plane at high altitude, got retired in 99. If this is 90, they would have been fielding and testing the Aurora.
Yeah. And I think the Aurora,
nobody really knows what the Aurora can do and what it looks like.
Yeah, I think using the word Aurora is a bit of a misnomer in the sense that I think the Aurora was the umbrella project. I think they then categorized it for the different crafts they were working on.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's what they should have been fielding about that time, because they run 10 years out from launch.
But it also... Go ahead, Lee.
Sorry, guys. No, I cut you off before. Rich, you go.
Rich, yeah, you go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks, guys. I was just wondering where... I know there were wars going on, right? Or how far away from this area were those wars?
Thousands of miles.
Yeah, the
like
Gulf.
2,000, 5,000? It wouldn't be...
Middle East.
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to look on the map here.
You're talking like 9, 10, 11-hour flight time maybe on a normal jet.
Yeah, from Scotland probably.
From Scotland.
Yeah.
But you have to bring back the witnesses' comments on what they said they saw, and they didn't hear anything. So if this was man-made, it's definitely going to make some noise. So are we saying this is back-engineered, some sort of new technology? What are we saying? I mean, we don't know because we can't see it. Yeah.
No idea.
So
this is what I was going to say as well, Rich, is how big do you think that UFO is? Yeah, I know you can only estimate it given the.
I would say the
about
estimates
60
that they've
feet.
given is about, I would say, 100 feet. I think the guys over at the Disclosure team have been relatively accurate with that. I would say 100 feet.
Is that long?
with
What
using
about
the
height?
Harrier,
Height, maybe
Thought it was
30,
like
40
40.
feet or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it's a big vehicle.
Yeah, it's
That's
huge.
to be hanging there. So this is my issue with the man-made thing is, because if what you're saying there about just getting ready to retire the Blackbird, testing whatever the Aurora
About 9 years out from that.
Yeah, what the Aurora was. So this is always my issue with the Tic Tac and with looking at these things as being man-made. There's no crossover point, and everywhere else in human technology, you've been able to see crossovers, and we've seen sort of from like hypersonic planes to what came before them. There's a steady technology curve in what's there. So how, in 1990, have we crossed over from something that's fucking huge, possibly fucking anti-gravity as well? Because if you've got no visible propulsion on it, it hanging there in the air while it's getting buzzed by jets. Like I mean, I'm always the one that doesn't. I don't think I've ever seen a decent picture of a UFO, and you could probably argue that this isn't a decent picture, but I still think it's the best, most compelling thing I've seen.
It's a good picture.
I mean, I personally like that picture doesn't do it justice.
Oh no, I'm sure if there was a sharp picture in focus, but as far as what we've had now, and what the main thing I find interesting here is, why now? When we've had this slow ramp up of things going on and these dribbles that are coming out, and the Congress thing to this, which essentially we don't know whether anything's going to come of it, and it might be the same sort of yearly cycle, 10-year cycle that Rich talks about, or however many years in ufology, where they give you a little bit and then take it all away again. Yeah. But we've had like X amount of people on Joe Rogan to hundreds of millions of people all over the world, getting people talking about it. Does it not seem strange that this fucking photograph falls out of the air now?
I think it's just pure luck. I think the fact that, I mean, the guy David Clark, who's been doing the research on it, I think he has been doing it for quite a while, and he stumbled across this ex-press officer. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are saying what Lee's saying, and we need to stop saying that. Why now? Why now? Since 2017, it's been going on. So why now? Fair. I mean, we've been getting tons of stuff. This isn't out of the norm anymore. This is going to be the norm. We're going to start seeing things come out of the woodwork. People are looking for things in drawers, books, under their mattress.
I hope so.
Rich, are we getting to disclosure in your lifetime?
No.
I
didn't even have to think.
I hope you're right, Rich. I don't think I come on an episode of Alien Addict without talking about Blue Beam or some sort of fucking psyop. Because I don't think because lots of Ollie's and your viewers are American. I don't think people in America understand how little we talk about this stuff in the UK. It's we don't.
What's that?
How
in the UK we don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's not like in the US where you have like a section on Tucker Carlson or something like that talking about it. It just doesn't exist. So pretty much doesn't exist. And I'm guessing that's
Lee, if it is in the UK, it tends to be sensationalized.
Yeah,
it's in the tabloid newspapers more often.
X-Files music behind it.
Yeah.
Wait, before we go, I just need to let Bobby Dazzler know I am in fact not getting paid by anybody. But they are welcome to if they'd like.
That is funny.
Just figure out.
I'm not getting paid either.
Dave's up for being a government shill any day of the week.
I mean, my price is pretty high. To be honest with you, but
pick me.
Swiftly moving on, because I'm just.
Dave,
we've still got slides to go through, guys. So
we'll be quite quick with the last two, because basically the last two, I don't remember any jets being in view. Now this then raises the point of what is behind the craft. What I think you're looking at, and I think those guys over at the disclosure team kind of seem to be along the same train of thought, is it's just a sort of standard misty Scottish night, low cloud, mist. It was about, I heard initially it was supposed to be really hot that day, and it was a warm summer, but I've since seen that the temperature was 14 degrees Celsius. Guys, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. So I'm not sure. See if you go on to 2 slides before the video, Ollie.
2 slides before the video, okay. This one?
It's right. I shot that further up the Highlands. Right.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It's just a snapshot. Just a snapshot, but basically, See that kind of cloud cover?
Mm-hmm.
That's what is basically, I think, behind. But what you're not seeing all the land. You're literally just more or less seeing all the whiteness behind the craft. And if you move on to the next slide,
That's amazing. Because you
Beautiful
can
shot,
almost
Stu.
see that it does kind of look like cloud cover.
Yeah.
You can see a little line here and there.
This was my thing when we were looking at the photograph the other week.
I know it was Lee. You got
I
me.
see. This is my island fucking like 6 months of the year looking like that. So as soon as I saw that photograph, it looked like it was took up on the mountain where I live. You know, it looked like it was a photograph taken on the mountain road, and I could see how that photograph would have come to being.
Yeah, me too, because I've spent enough time in the Highlands and around Fort Augustus, bottom end of Loch Ness and stuff like that, that this kind of weather creeps in all the time, especially in the morning, and your vision is very obscured. So, and it can be very patchy, so that you might be looking at something that looks like a solid wall of cloud mist or whatever, but just in front of it, it's actually quite clear. I mean, you can look at photos of the Scottish Highlands and you'll see dappled light through the clouds and all that kind of stuff. There's loads of stuff, thousands and thousands of images. If you move on just quickly to the next slide, Ollie.
Did you take that just for this?
No.
No, you don't do that. Yeah.
No, I've had that for years. See the one, the black and white next to the right. This isn't my image, I should say. I just wanted to sort of use this as an example. Similar kind of sky, okay? But do you note that the water now, it is even darker because obviously it's been processed that way. But the reason why, and this is to get the whole reflection thing and the rock out of the way, the rock isn't symmetrical. It's not reflecting symmetrically. And also, the water would always be darker than the sky, just by the nature of light is going to bounce off the surface and go back up. Even in a glassy, still, day when the wind is not moving, you're always going to have a difference in the exposure. So that's why I kind of threw that in there.
So, Stu, are you saying us debunkers are wrong?
Yeah.
And it's 100% not a rock.
It's 100% not a rock.
So I know you know what you saw, but for the debunkers that might think you're a bullshitter, because they will, mark my words. How would you explain that? Like I'm 6 years old.
What just the original Calvine image?
That might be difficult. Explain it to him like he's Ollie.
Explain to me like Ollie.
Yeah, just like he's Ollie.
Yeah. This image, how difficult would that be to fake as a reflection of a rock, just to make it look like that exactly?
Back then, exceptionally difficult. It just isn't. There's no. I mean, you've got it's kind of, is it pareidolia they call it? You're imagining a horizon between the 2 points of the rock, and you're also looking at it in reflection. If you actually look at those two halves, the lower half being reflected, they're not symmetrical. They're not a proper reflection, and also the water. So the area below in the second half of, if it was a rock, it would be darker. It wouldn't be the same exposure.
But you don't always get a true reflection. Because I mean, if you look at the swan, you don't always get a perfect reflection.
No, that's true.
You do not always get a mirror image.
But you do always get a difference in the exposure, and you will always see some kind of horizon point, and it's just not there. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's debatable to where the jet is, but the craft is, I don't know how far away from them, but a good few hundred feet, 400, 500, 600 feet away from them. And there's no way you could fake it, because this is prior. I mean, Photoshop was just in its infancy. There was like Quantel Paintbox and stuff like that, but I mean, you're talking like computers that took up whole rooms. And these guys are not going to have any access to that. You could double expose it, I suppose, but again, it's complicated. But one of the things that I actually asked at the time was, are these in the order of which they were on the original negative? And the guy said, yeah. So to actually like fake 6 images and get them looking really good and consistent is really difficult. You know, I mean, these images, you know, the negatives went to the MOD eventually, and they were obviously viewed by their experts. And the reason why I think the Harrier came into play, just to go back to that for a second, is you've got to remember in the UK, 8 years prior, we had the Falklands conflict, and the Harrier was very much the star of that conflict. And it was a high-profile jet in the UK during the 80s and early 90s. So I think that's part of the reason why the Harrier was picked, especially if they were trying to hide the fact that potentially it was fast jets, tornadoes, whatever, from Lookers or Lossiemouth, that kind of thing. So, sorry, Rich.
For you guys who know the military stuff and all the machinery, could this be some sort of blimp?
Yeah.
I don't. I like.
It looked too metallic to me at the
Good
time.
question.
So they're, yeah. I mean,
don't say no, but
nobody said that yet. I just thought of it.
No, I've thought of it. That the thing is, we have no perception of depth. Like, how low is this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, they're not. Though they don't run those low.
I'd also remind people that it was in World War II. Blow up tanks we used.
That's right.
To make it appear from the air like there was tanks on the ground.
Plus the anti the air raid blimps that were tied off to stop planes and stuff.
Yeah. I think there's also the thing. I'm sure that there is fake technology that's put into circulation, so enemy countries get hold of it and go, what the fuck have the UK got?
Yeah.
You know, it's so there could always be something like that.
Misinformation is always going to be part of it. I mean, I saw Project Unity's video this morning. He had Nick Cook, who originally was a journalist with Jane's Defence Weekly.
I love that channel. It's a great channel.
Yeah, he does quite well with it. But Nick Cook's was pretty much of the opinion that it was misinformation and like probably fake from that perspective, but not necessarily a fake photo.
Are the witnesses still around? That anybody reach out to him, like Ross?
That's the weird one. They were interviewed by the MOD, I think, in the September, and after that, it was decided that they would not be involved in it. I think they did get the address or whatever, but I mean, if these guys were chefs, I mean, they're probably still around.
That's right. Was this the one where they're going to keep the names hidden for another 54 years or something?
Yeah.
If it's 30 years, are they alive?
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, 30 years. I mean, so they're a chef. So what are they, 30 years old? 30 years later, they're 60. Yeah. Chef's life, like if you've ever been in a kitchen, that's a hard life.
Yeah, they drink.
You're on your feet all day.
Drink,
especially in Scotland.
Drugs, there's food, you know,
bad
4
relationships.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's... Did that match up to a Harrier?
That's not a Harrier.
You don't think so, do you, Stu? You don't think it was a Harrier? I want to get.
What I've done
really
here
want to
is
talk about that.
Yeah, what I've done here is I've taken a shot of a Tornado GR1. Now it is banking more than what the Harrier was, and I scaled it down, and I applied roughly the same amount of motion blur. At an expert's sort of guess, I would say his shutter speed would be about 125th to 200, 1/250th of a second, just by the nature of the blur on the other actual jet that's in the frame. I just wanted to do that to demonstrate that if you can imagine the tornado with less bank on it would actually have a similar profile to what they're calling a Harrier jet. There is another train of thought, but I think Dave's actually debunked it for me, which is, see if you go to the slide with the 3 jets, Ollie.
Slide with the 3 jets. Thank you, Bobby. Love you, man.
It's just the previous slide, I think.
Yeah.
This is kind of where I was at with it, and I've said this already. The Harrier is subsonic, limited fuel capacity, limited range. Does really good for what it does, but it's not something that they would send out, as far as I'm concerned, to go chase something unknown. Tornado makes more sense to me because supposedly Lossiemouth did have 1 or 2 at that time, and the following year the Tornado got based at Lossiemouth because the previous jet that we had, the Buccaneer, got retired. The other thing it could potentially be, and this is me going totally left of field, utter speculation, is an F-16 Fighting Falcon. The reason why I say that is we're guessing that if it is a stealth aircraft, it's the US government or the US military have fielded it out. But what if it was the Skunk Works guys in Northrop Grumman? Do you know what I mean?
Oh no, that if they're fielding their roar, it is them.
Right. So
they are the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm. So they also make the F-16 Fighting Falcon. So it could potentially be that, because it's obviously not like an F-14 or that. It's not got twin, tails and stuff like that. So I just put that in there as a kind of bit of a might be not speculation. Probably not. But we didn't. We flew Phantoms, F4 Phantoms in the UK, and I think out of Lookers there was Phantoms at that time. Don't take that as gospel. But the F-16 Falcon is definitely, that's a US craft. So if that was getting flown out of Machrihanish. But again, I like what you said, Dave, off of Josh and Artemis's question. Why would they put 2 jets to escort a stealth fighter that can go maybe Mach 10?
Yeah, I mean, you don't do that. You use jets, or you don't even have to use jets. You just tell all aircraft stay out of this. If they do, then you scramble. And testing it over semi-populated areas makes sense, especially with an ally testing for technology. It's penetration, right? Can you pick it up? When you do, we send the all clear. Hey, don't shoot us down, because they don't just fire. They're going to inquire what's going on.
Yeah.
The thing would be, is there radar telemetry? Like, if you got those bases around, is there a FOIA freedom of information, like, request path you can take there to try and get it from that date? We know the date. We know when it was. We can get it from that day, right? Like, that would help to narrow things down. Unless they are testing, I don't know how the UK government handles classifying things or not. I don't understand that process over there. I don't understand that process here. I don't think anyone does.
I don't understand how the process of compartmentalization or classification goes. So obviously it happens at Whitehall, it happens at the MOD, it happens, Downing Street, that kind of thing. Stuff is put
that
into
happens in corporations. That's very normal these days. Yeah, depending on especially like in pharmaceuticals and stuff.
But in terms of the jets, I think we can safely predict that it was probably UK RAF jets, whatever it was, whether it was a Harrier. But the thing is, the RAF didn't really fly the Harrier, it was the Navy. That's the other thing. I think they did have some Harriers, but I'm pretty sure it was the majority of the Harriers that we had at the time were getting flown from our aircraft carriers in the Navy.
Weren't the Harriers on the way out as well at that point too?
Yeah, they didn't last that much longer. It was only a few years later they were phased out in preparation for the Typhoon. But even the Typhoon, I think, has been superseded by the F-35 or whatever the other one is that they've got. So, the Harrier didn't last that much longer.
So Josh and not to cut you off, but Josh and Artemis had an excellent say the pics weren't classified, only the names of the people who took the pics. And they say, again, that says a lot about the object. Well, as someone who's a professional paranoid, it does and it doesn't. Disinformation isn't always about obscuring, locking down, and making a big deal about things. Sometimes it's about, like, why were the second copy of negatives made? Where are the original negatives and photos?
Oh, I can answer that.
Yeah, that's the biggest
The duplicates
question.
were made, and because that's kind of standard operating procedure at a newspaper. If
Okay.
they knew they were going to have to give up the negatives, they're going to make dupes. They're not going to give negatives away to the MOD because they're never going to see them again.
Yeah.
Okay.
They know they're never going to see them again, and I can like testify to that because I had to supply images from a crash at Prestwick of a jet stream. Two test pilots crashed right, in front of myself and another photographer, and the other photographer got much better shots, but his stuff was taken away to, I think, either RAF Fairford or Farnborough, wherever our crash investigation team is based down in England, and his negs were confiscated and they were used in the inquiry, and he never saw them again. He was promised them back, but he never saw them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's standard operating procedure to copy the duplicates and things like that. Make duplicates and copy the negatives.
The one thing I'd say to Josh and Artemis there is, it's all well and good saying, oh, but the photographs weren't classified. You've only saw them last week. It doesn't matter at that point whether they were classified or not. It's took this long to see an original photograph of it. So if you haven't seen an original photograph, it might as well be classified. It might as well be on the moon. It doesn't matter.
And it doesn't make sense to classify the names of chefs. Like the classification for civilians, for a civilian to be
Seagal on that boat.
What's that?
What if it was Steven Seagal on that boat?
Oh, dude, he was a chef. He'd be telling everybody.
I think it's down to, like, in the 90s, we had a lot of data protection stuff kick in. And I think that's why the names were classified. It was just partly data protection. So when they declassified the stuff a couple of years ago, and folks started digging into it, that's why the addresses and things like that weren't made available. So that would be my guess.
And I don't know the process for the UK, but I know in the US to like classify citizen witnesses, like there's so much involved in that. Because it makes eminent domain, if you know what that is, the government taking someone's property, a hell of a bigger deal. Because you're just telling someone, by the way, your freedom of speech, your rights, everything you've seen, you can never say it again, or force of this XYZ is gonna. You don't do that. That's why, again, you secure huge swaths of land to test things. You do it at an incredibly high altitude. You do it because you don't want to deal with that problem. Because people just can never keep their mouths shut.
Yeah, makes sense. Right, Ollie,
I want to talk about this. So this seems, I asked you about this on the phone, about the, was it the Sun that put that out? Yeah, he says the Sun newspaper, yeah. So
I think so. I mean,
it was a bloody good reconstruction.
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't 100% know because there's mixed messages. It could have been created for one of Nick Pope's books. It was Nick Pope that originally wrote about Calvine in 1996. So, hats off to him for that he kind of kept it in the public eye for years afterwards. I wasn't even aware of that until the other day because I've never read anything of Nick's. But this recreation... I
actually apologized to him the other day. I said it's not a rock.
Ollie, just turn your microphone down slightly. You're well loud.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
I apologize. I don't know what's going on at the back end of it, but the reconstruction is, and you'll see I've kind of done my version of it, is pretty... It's good. It's better than... It's kind of closer to what I saw in those negatives. I've had a go at doing one. Do you want to show it now?
Yeah. I do think that's a great reconstruction, though, I have to say.
I think that's the thing, right? This is what gets me, Because no, but people keep turning around and saying, "Oh, but he's put hills in. Why are the hills there when there's no hills in the original photograph?" To be perfectly honest, I genuinely think that it's such a fucking asinine point, because they're put in there to pepper it up. They're put in there to place that that recreation.
It's a bit of sizzle for
in a
the
place.
images.
Yeah, it's to ground it in reality, essentially. Otherwise, you're just sticking a triangle on a white background. It wouldn't make any fucking sense to
Am I
do
right
that.
by saying, though, Stu, you saw hills?
So this is where the original print's been cropped. At the very bottom, I mean, if you can imagine the picture being from top to bottom 100%, at the bottom 15 to 20%, you can see hills in the original. It's cropped out in the Calvine photo that Craig Lindsay gave David Clark.
They cropped out the hills, you're saying?
Yeah, at the bottom, because obviously the craft was the thing they were interested in. They didn't realise, that years later, people like us were going to debate whether it was a reflection of a rock. So I've done this recreation. This is closer. Like, I've borrowed the fencing, a little bit of the fencing. I've sort of dampened down the amount of cloud cover there is. I've used the trees from the original shot. I've put the tornado in blurred, just to be different. But the way I've got the craft there is, and people can obviously download this and look at it a bit closer because there's a lot more detail there, is more than what I remember looking at the duplicate negatives. You saw lines and more shape to it than you see on the Calvine image, and that's down to the fact that the Calvine image is out of focus at the print stage.
And you saw that detail on the craft?
Yeah.
I think they removed the hills. I don't know if you said this. Maybe because they didn't want us to gauge its size.
Or get location, specific location.
Oh,
an
right.
angle. Yeah, because you can reverse that if I have enough in the background to pull.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you've got to remember, these guys were high up.
Just to grab you before you go to that, someone said that classified anywhere means classified everywhere. It's actually not true. I actually own equipment in my country that's totally legal, and it's just technology. But if I tried to take it to the UK, the United States government would arrest me, and the UK government would take it immediately to have it. They wouldn't prosecute me or charge me at all. They may even compensate me for it, but I would probably lose my passport. In fact, I would lose my passport.
But he definitely doesn't work for the CIA.
I definitely don't work for the CIA. And then someone says it doesn't seem that they would allow it in an office if it was. So, I can't speak to the cogs of the UK government because I don't know anything about that allegedly. But in the US, I mean, there was a nuclear facility in America that was penetrated by a 70-something-year-old nun, an 80-year-old preacher, and some 50, like a team of geriatric people walked miles through sensors, armed gunmen, because they knew the day that they did maintenance on the sensors. It's the same way when people make penetration on Area 51. All you have to do is get to know someone who works there, buy them a few beers. They're going to talk to you. Like, secrets are never really secrets.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, they just aren't. That's why they could have been an easy oversight. It could have been, or like I think someone had said earlier, it's like maybe it was an elaborate hoax or disinformation or testing out a balloon. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know.
I don't know about the blimp thing, but from my perspective, when I looked at the negatives and looked at them closely, I saw more detail and it looked man-made. That's all I can really say to it.
What made you think it was man-made? If you had to give a descriptor, like what about it? Did you see like rivets?
Do you know?
Or?
Yeah, like an old-fashioned B-25 bomber without the paintwork that's kind of all glossy metal, and you see like the riveting and all that kind of stuff on it. Mm-hmm. It had that kind of vibe, not exactly that, but that kind of vibe to it.
That vibe, or that's
welding.
Well, the stuff's been welded. Yeah. And you can see lines, and I've represented it on, as I say, if you download the image afterward, you can zoom in a little bit more at your leisure. You'll see I've put in like lines and stuff like that I try to represent as from what I remembered of it. But I mean, obviously, it's 30 years ago.
But your impression was that it was manufactured.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. No,
And
at no point did I think ET had come back. Collect
And
calling
that
on the
plane's
regular.
not a Harrier that you've put in there.
No, that's a Tornado, GR3, I think.
You convinced about that? You that's the one thing that I took from the conversation with you. It was more about the aeroplane.
Well, the reason why I was quite convinced about it was
Jet.
the guy who told me that, or told me the whole story. He's ex-RAF. He was in, and I'm probably outing him at this point to people who know him. He was in the RAF. He was a photographer in the RAF, and he retired from the RAF. And he was also based, I think, at Lossiemouth. So he probably still had friends and colleagues up the road that he kept in touch with. And that's how he knew it was a Tornado. But who knows? It could have been a Harrier, could have been an F-16, could have been a Tornado, could have been a Hawker Hunter, which was, I think, they used for training and stuff like that. Two-person, side-by-side, two-seater plane, side-by-side rather than front and back. It could have been that. It could be an F4 Phantom. We just don't know. And you're never going to find out. I mean, that's the other thing that I would say. Unless these negatives were kept, and this is the original negatives I'm talking about now, were kept really in humidity, controlled and acid-free storage, out of the sunlight, then they've all but vanished, because that was one of the bad points about Ilford XP1 and the XP2 to a certain extent, was after about 5 years, the neg just disappeared. It just became a clear piece of gelatin acetate.
Stu,
So, sorry.
can I ask you, because the audience are going to want to, I know we briefly went over this, but when you say you saw the detail on this craft, what were you using to see that detail? Can you just explain that?
The member of staff at the Daily Record was using a viewer that allowed us to magnify into the negatives quite considerably.
And you asked if you could do that. You said, "Do you mind if I take a look at this?" Or did he say?
Well, he obviously was still doing his job, so he said, he let me have a play with it. I think I got about maybe 10 or 15 minutes with it on my own. So I mean, what sort of
detail do you get off this piece of machine that you use at the time?
If you can imagine a really powerful magnifying glass, handheld magnifying glass, or even like a weaker microscope, it will zoom right in. So about 20 times zoom, so you can go right in, because these machines were used to check focus. So mainly, not so much by the just sort of general press guys, but like sports guys and that, making sure that they, got the tennis ball in shot or whatever, or the football or the golf swing, or whatever it was that they were photographing, the rugby or that. So they were
back of that. If you had to give a percentage to how much quality this has lost, what would you say?
I would say it's 30% of its original sharpness. And plus, you've got to remember, I was looking at duplicates. So we went through earlier on which way you could have done it. They either used color reversal film, but I think that is too expensive, too convoluted, and they're too lazy up at the Daily Record, quite frankly. They will have done 6 prints, put them in a copy stand, and photographed the prints again onto the AGFA negative film. And again, I don't know why AGFA was used, because it wasn't that common, but it could well be the AGFA rep had been in that day and chucked them a whole load of free film, and they just decided to use that to dupe the stuff because the negs were going to the MOD and they needed to get them duplicated fast. Who knows?
So I want to go to the rest of the guys that are here in this panel tonight, to ask questions on the back of this.
Ollie, I have to go anyway.
Okay.
So
okay.
Can I just jump in? James Clark's got a question for Stu. Is it what happened to the negative?
James
that-
Clark's the guy. James Clark is the guy who got the picture released.
No,
it's,
David Clark. Is it not?
Oh, David Clark, yeah.
David Clark.
He said, could you ask you Stu, what happened to the negative he had access to in '93?
I literally saw him put it back in the acetate sheet and it get dumped on top of a pile of paperwork next to the light box. And I left not long after that. Drank up my cup of tea and walked out the door because my business there was done. So what happened to those negatives after that? You've got to remember that time's moved on. I don't even know where they keep their negative archives. I don't even know if they scanned them and digitally archived them. But the Daily Record building, as it was, no longer exists. They have a new building that's been there for quite a number of years now, but it's all open plan and all that kind of stuff. So the building doesn't even exist any longer. So there's a high likelihood it just got trashed, unless somebody kept it, which could have happened.
Rich, I know you got a show to go to, but before you go, have you got a question you want to ask? Because we may go on for another half an hour. So,
No, no, everything's been answered, but it was awesome sitting in. Thanks for letting me be a part of this. And Stu, great job.
Thank you.
Really good work, man. And Dave, talk to you soon. Must see Audio Lee. Everybody else,
buddy.
see you later. Thanks, Ollie.
check out GUFON and
Cheers,
description,
Rich.
people.
See you guys.
Boys, I'm going to stand out for a bit. You go ahead.
All right. So Stu, this is a question I have in my mind.
Okay.
You saw this like 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It's 19 years or 29 years ago. You saw it for 10 or 15 minutes. It made an impression on you, but it seems that your biggest impression is to fix it on the jet and not the large diamond object. I'm just curious about that. It seems strange to me.
No, I think we've talked about the jet more tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my own little bugbear, but trust me,
I get it.
I was looking at that stuff that day. The jet wasn't. I looked at the jet, glanced at it. I was interested in the diamond-shaped thing there.
Yeah. I mean, it would definitely stand out to me. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because the jet everyone seems to be so certain that it's a Sea Harrier, which just doesn't make sense to me. I think I kind of want to put forward that it has to be an alternative, whether it is a Tornado or something else. I just don't see how a Harrier jump jet would be a plane they would dispatch to hunt something like this down. Because you got to remember, the witnesses said that after they watched it for a while, this thing shot up in the air and that was it. It was gone.
It's just a fixation of yours on the jet. I get it.
Yeah, it's my own little pet peeve, shall we say?
I got you. Hey man, everybody walks down that. Now you say you got the impression that it was manufactured.
Yeah.
And into that, and there was no landscape. So you said earlier that this was rip, right? Is that right?
Yeah, if you can just imagine
print?
a print that on two sides has been ripped, so it's a quarter of a larger print. Okay. Somebody's obviously been in the darkroom, had a large sheet of photographic paper, has
so they're blowing it up, right? They're blowing it up old school style. They're ripping off what they want to see, taking a picture.
They just printed what they wanted to print, and there was on the rag print there was less. Like there was no fence. You can see a tiny little bit of the bushes at the top, and that was it. It was mainly
this has more detail.
Yeah, they had cropped into the UFO more than anything else.
Yeah. So on the rag print you saw, they were looking at the UFO. I mean, I would too. Hell, I definitely.
Yeah, because you got to remember. I mean, I saw this thing from like umpteen feet away, and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And I went and then walked up to it and looked at it more closely.
Yeah.
So it got my attention.
Yeah, it would get my attention. That's and all six were basically just the same thing in the air. It's just the plane was in different positions.
Yeah, and the photographer, and again I'm speculating, but just professional educated guess, has tried to compose to get all 2-3 things in shot. So therefore the craft has been placed more to the right-hand side. But again, I didn't move the trees or the fence to compensate. In real life, that would obviously, the perspective of that would change as well.
See, I'd like, because there's quite a lot of people in the chat that are still on the rock reflection thing.
I think we have to get away from that now, honestly.
I do.
Actually, Ollie, can you just quickly play that 20-second video that's at the back end of the slides?
But because I don't. I think the thing is, if someone thinks
Leave,
that
watch
needs,
this a second.
just make it. Yeah,
I took this into Lightroom and I basically see how you can see it's clouds.
Yeah.
There's no hint of water there. It's just clouds.
Well, I think the thing with this is what I don't get, right? And this is what I'm confused with the
Thanks, Ollie.
with the reflection idea. And I don't know if people that are saying it's a reflection have got this, because sorry, Ollie, we just popped the original picture back.
Yeah,
up,
that's what I was saying.
Can
we put the original picture up?
Yeah. So the idea of the reflection people are, if they're not saying it's, or some of them aren't saying that it's what I would think of it as being reflection, is in like someone stood on the bank of a lake with an island in the distance, and you're seeing the top of the island, and the bottom is the reflection, and that's just a handy dandy leaf that happens to look like a plane. But what other people are starting to say is that the whole fucking thing is water. The whole thing is water, and that's why you don't see any sky. But if that was the fucking case, you wouldn't see a fucking reflection, because you'd be taking a picture on top of something.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the plane, unless it was a boat. I mean, I understand that, but again, it's scale.
You wouldn't see the bottom of the boat. You wouldn't get the reflection of the boat because you're taking a picture over it, and that I don't get the reflection thing. It's at this point, and nobody's really gone as far as to say that this is a fucking alien craft. I do think that the technology leap to go from the plane that's in the picture to the fucking flying diamond is a bit of a fucking jump that I can't understand.
Yep.
Well, in between that, you've got the SR-71.
But the SR-71 isn't capable of that. It needs refueling at least twice to get to 80,000 feet. It makes ridiculous sonic booms. It's shattered windows taking off from low flight. I mean, even the Aurora has consecutive sonic booms that go out because of the type of engine that we at least theoretically understand that it uses. Exactly. Yeah. Very well versed in that.
That's interesting. We saw the contrail of the scramjet over Arran in the summer. It was very distinctive, and
circular booms.
We used to look out for it, and you would know they were testing something, and they were either heading down the Irish Sea or they were going out. And I'm just going to have to pause for a second and let my dog out. Okay, I will be back in a minute.
But back onto the original photograph. As far as I'm concerned, if you look at that, and I genuinely think that this is the people that think it's a reflection, I'd like to know where they come from, because I think to look at this, like anything, like any picture of any part of the world, especially when there's certain atmospheric phenomena goes on, you need some sort of local knowledge of, if not that area, of that type of environment. And for someone that lives in this sort of environment, I can see that's not a picture of a fucking reflection. That's a picture of the fucking of low cloud up in high lands. It just it baffles me. I think it's, even if you want to rip all fucking excitement out of it and just say, it's probably some sort of classified vehicle, it's more likely that is something floating in the sky than it is a reflection in the water. The reflection in the water is a harder thing to do and has more fences to jump to get to that fucking thing.
Yeah, Occam's razor says that there's a lot more involved in that. So can we go to the map of the two different air bases, please? Whoever can do that. So there's one that the U.S. was. So where did this? Is the location on this map where this picture was taken?
Yeah, top Calvine.
So Calvine. Okay.
Yeah.
Where is the other RAF bases in relation to that?
They're on the east coast, so they're sort of the opposite to the right-hand side, and then
Okay.
up the coast.
Are there any on the west coast side?
We've got fast
Losses up, isn't it? Losses right up.
Yeah, losses
Okay.
right
Would
up.
that have fast aircraft like tornadoes?
No, they're not. That's where we keep our nuclear submarines.
Really?
Yeah, CJ's where Aaron, like, see if you follow the line and then you go to the top of Aaron and like the Firth of Clyde sort of merges into sort of darker point. See that dark blue patch?
That would explain why it would only be one plane. If you did have some kind of jet like that doing a normal security patrol, it wouldn't be two. It would be one because you're in friendly skies. You're just doing it's sky patrol. Yeah, we see them in the U.S. all the time. One plane. It's one plane high up. It's clearly not a passenger jet. It's just aerial patrol. They just do it. They have them up, and they tend to run between nuclear facilities, at least around.
Well, you've also got.
So if this was moving from the east coast, from the east coast towards that.
You've also got a nuclear power station just like miles down the road, Hunterston.
Yeah.
Which at that point, it's not active now as much. I think it still runs one.
If I was going to take that this is a UFO, the UFO may have just been waiting in the patrol route.
Who knows? Who knows?
I mean, who knows? Who knows? But we know that there's unusual activity in the sky. You just said that there's a nuclear power facility somewhere near there. There's another place where nuclear of something is kept to the north, correct?
Yeah, the bases are.
So Calvine suddenly is a much more interesting location.
It's also it's called, I think it's called LF-14.
Right.
It's the low flying route for the planes to go and test. Like down in Wales, I think they call it the Mac Loop.
All the more reason for something just to be waiting there. One thing we've seen with alleged UFO or extraterrestrial technology is that, and if it was U.S. testing, they would not penetrate into nuclear areas, and they would not penetrate. If you just said that is the low flying route where they like to test their planes for maneuverability or give their pilots a stretch, they won't put it in that path because it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
So that scratches that.
Dave, can I ask, are you convinced that the debunk that both me and Professor Simon put out is not debunked?
No, I don't think it's a reflection. And that's not that. I mean, that's mostly from Lee. I think this is interesting. I love that Stu saw it. Saw. Yes.
I should have elaborated on that. I should have elaborated. What I meant is, did you think that when you first saw the debunk, you've got it spot on, or did you think?
Well, I'm pretty jaded at this point, man. I'm very cautious of anything that goes. It's what do you believe? What do you not believe? Manufactured doesn't necessarily mean it's earthbound, right? Like and to go way outside, if you have an interdimensional, like somebody's making these things, right? Like to assume that they're not made, that doesn't make sense. It has to be made, whether it's printed, whatever. Like we didn't see rivets. He just had the impression that it is manufactured, right? Because of the angles or whatever. Okay. Manufactured by who is the next question.
Aliens.
Right? What is an alien? So it
Lee,
I don't know.
Lee's an alien.
Definitely redheads. I don't know, man. I don't know. I know that we just found out that there's a nuclear power station. There's another nuclear storage facility that's the military controls. We have a flight route that was just quickly confirmed by someone who I believe, because he knows about ramjet engines, and you don't hear about that. That's unusual. And the trails that they make, that's even more unusual. And we have base locations that would be a flight path, especially if you were just, hey, we're going to secure the Scotland, where you take this flat out, stretch your legs, get up in the air, and you have something that's in somewhere that is what they would use to stretch out the pilot's legs and near nuclear facility. I mean, these are interesting things. These are all interesting things, right? Like I am afraid that we could potentially be missing the forest for all the trees, right? That's just me.
This is where I let you guys speculate. I can only tell my story and
it's
put it out
awesome.
there. That's that.
Yeah, you in this last few moments, you just confirmed some incredible things that no one's talking about. No one's talking about a power station nearby. No one's talking about that there's a nuclear storehouse of some kind to the north. No one's talking about the location of the military bases, or that's in a flight path that's normally used to stretch out. Like I live near a flight path. They fly Apaches all the time. It's a regular thing. It's not over a lot of people. It's not going to bother anyone, and it lets them get into the valleys and practice, right? Because I live in a mountainous area.
You've also got a larger airport, you get two airports. You've got Glasgow Airport and Glasgow Prestwick. Glasgow Airport's more tourism, holiday flights.
Yeah.
Flights going down to London that'll then go more international. They do flights across to like New York and stuff like that, to New York and whatnot. But Prestwick's more commercial with way less like tourism stuff. You have Ryanair flying out of Prestwick, and which would mean if there were support planes and refueling tankers and that, they could easily be parked up at Prestwick and refueled and then sent on their way, if they weren't going to do it at Machrihanish for whatever reason.
There's something to me that it strikes me as odd. I don't, and I can't possibly put my finger on it. But like if you do human tracking, right, and you to go out, you look for small signs, you got a stick, you're spacing it out, you're looking for footprints, you're you're trying to figure out where they would go. Occasionally you get so focused on looking for little shit, you end up on a deer trail. Mm-hmm. So you have to stop, take a second back and think, you as a person, where would you go? Like what does your instinct tell you? And my instinct tells me I'm getting bogged down. I don't know, man. I think it's wildly interesting, and it should continue to be looked into.
I think the big thing I've got here is, given I'm obviously not mentioning any names, but given the fact that on that day when you saw the original photographs of this, you knew the people that were involved there, you knew the people that were in that room, you know the people that worked for that newspaper. Knowing those people, do you think the attention this has got now? We could, I don't want to use the word expect, but hope that somebody in that room that knew, like you said before, the MOD said you can't print that. I mean, if I worked for a newspaper and I saw that and the MOD said you couldn't run that as a story, the first thing I'd have done is made copies for myself. I'd have locked them away in my house. So somebody's done that. If we just take this as this story is genuine, those photographs were in the Daily Record that day. Somebody did that in that office. They had to, because you just could not do it, especially a load of reporters. You could not do that. So can we expect now to see the other 5 images dribble out?
Well, funnily enough, I actually know one of the sub-editors, and it's a she, and she'll remain nameless. She's just recently retired, and she works for the sister paper, the Sunday Mail, which is in the same building, in the same rooms, effectively, as the Daily Record. And she also used to do night shifts for the Daily Record. So I'm going to contact her through Facebook and dig a little deeper. I've also found out that I don't know if he was the picture editor at the time of the original images coming in, but he was the picture editor at the time I was there. So he's no longer a picture editor, and he's gone back to working as a photographer for the last 10 or so years. So I'm going to contact him and ask him. But again, I don't want to be known as the Calvine, neg guy or whatever.
I get it.
You said you'd go. The 2 channels that you'd go on was mine and GUFON's.
Yeah, that's it. I said I would speak to the disclosure team guys if they want me to speak to them like tomorrow over the phone,
Yeah.
but that's like off the record for their
They've done some great
investigation.
work over there. They have.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be here if
They
it wasn't
blocked
for
you.
them.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
we wouldn't.
good.
We wouldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't be
They
happier
blocked
that they
me.
blocked.
They blocked me.
They blocked you. Yeah, that's
Weird.
awesome.
Strange.
I'll talk to them off the record. I don't
Understandable.
want anything that I haven't already discussed, but I just don't want it on social media or on YouTube or anything like that. It's for their personal use as part of their investigation if they want me to speak to them. But that's it. I'm not doing any other interviews. Say if Rich wants me to come on Saturday or another
It's
night.
the UK. It's the UK time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then fair play to him. I'll come on and do like a half an hour, 3/4 an hour or something, and just follow up questions he might have thought of something by then. But he might have moved on to that point. I mean, there's plenty going on this week in ufology to be talking about anything and everything. So yeah, this is kind of my only time that I'm going to be talking about this extensively.
Mate, honestly, it's go on, Dave. Sorry.
Oh no! So, is there any
No, no,
way
you
that we could, like, you could connect us with those people off the record? They don't have to be on the record. Just curious, personal curiosity.
I can ask, but I'm going to contact those two people out of sheer curiosity myself.
Okay.
But that is as far as I am digging into this. You know, I've got too much to do. I've got my own little YouTube channel that I'm trying to build up, and I want to basically, yes, we can talk about the GUFO on Saturday. All right, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Tune in on GUFON on Saturday night.
So yeah, so I mean, I've got my own thing going on here. You know, obviously got 2 boys, wife, dog. You know, I just don't have time to. I love listening to and watching all the YouTube, you know, ufology stuff. I follow, you know, ufology on Twitter and stuff like that. But that's kind of the extent of my ufology hobby, shall we say?
You don't want to talk about the stuff that you do that you showed me, no?
What, my own work?
Yeah. I didn't. Are we keeping that? Because I mean, Stu,
Yeah,
listen,
I mean-
you don't have to speak about that. I will vouch for you that I have seen your work and it's freaking fantastic, and I can see.
I mean, basically nowadays I'm a video editor. I edit commercial films, documentaries, and I teach the mobile side of video editing, which is using iPads and iPhones, using an app called LumaFusion by LumaTouch, and I've got over 100 videos, tutorials, teaching you.
Ace, I've used that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've edited one video on it. It's so good.
So I've been teaching that for a couple of years now. I've got a good relationship with LumaTouch, the company, and I do some bits and pieces with Apple directly as well. And just generally, you know, I'm just trying to sort of build up that whole side of things. So by all means, if somebody's into video editing and they want to do it on an iPad or even on a Mac that has the M1 chip in it or the M2 chip or whatever, so that they can use iPad OS or iOS apps on their Mac, LumaFusion can get used on a Mac. Yeah, by all means, you know, come over, check out the channel, check out some videos, and if you like it, subscribe.
I don't think
in
we
the
stress
description.
this enough, actually. Like just like as we're sort of closing this off. Like when we started doing this like discussion at the beginning, and you were explaining to us about the cameras that we used and the cameras that were around at the time, and the film that could have been used, and the negatives and stuff like that. I think the people that are telling you it's a reflection, I think they need to realize they're talking to a photography expert.
Clearly.
You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll blow my own horn a little bit harder for a second or two. I've got a good relationship with Russell Brown from Adobe, and I have spoken with both Thomas and John Knoll in the past at trade shows, and I've been using Photoshop since very, very early days. So I used to actually do demos and teach overseas Photoshop techniques, and I was probably one of the first people in the UK to go from like traditional negatives, SLR cameras, to digital, and also teach the workflow to not only press photographers, but wedding photographers, portrait photographers, landscape photographers, all that kind of stuff. I've had a close relationship with Fujifilm. I helped launch their S2 Pro camera back in the day, and so I've got a lot of experience in a whole manner. I've shot sport as well as other commercial things, and I've got a lot of experience shooting food photography and theatrical stuff and that. I've shot a lot of things, and I've been at it for a long time now. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
I
Yeah,
can
that's
vouch. I
obvious.
can vouch for that. I've seen
that's
his
obvious.
work. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, it just dawned on me there because coming towards the end, especially reading some of the comments that have popped up. Yeah, but you don't have that knowledge of equipment that you can just rattle off the top of your head without a deep understanding of the field that you're in. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like Ollie and Gay Porn.
He knows all of the actors' sites.
Yeah.
Knows it.
You have to destroy a very serious video now, Lee.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
You were doing so well.
It's almost supernatural. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I find it funny. And the funny thing, looking at some of the comments as well from people. I mean, don't be wrong, there hasn't been a lot of nasty comments. There's just been a lot of rock reflection comments. And
my wife says one guy, when I was putting the dog out there, she says one guy seems to be giving me a hard time. I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah,
later.
don't worry about it. They all give me a hard time.
I know.
Cool.
I'm not worried about it. Trust me.
They all hate Dave.
They do.
I think he's a government shill.
I am.
I've got a thick skin. I can take it.
But yeah, I know it's. I just wanted to point that out. Like it's one of those things where you think, well, are you in the position to argue about this? For someone to be like 100% convinced, going that's a reflection, when you've got someone which knows what they're talking about, and you go, nah, it's fucking reflection. You go, well.
Plus, I've been up to the area. I mean, it's like a few miles north of Pitlochry. The Falls of Brewer are nearby. I've hill walked in that area. I've been there on family holidays. I've probably been to that area. I mean, I've been to Calvine. I know the area. So, I mean, I know what the weather's like up there from, childhood experiences of having holidays with my family and stuff like that. So,
I mean, I appreciate you coming on and putting up with the us and all the questions.
The pleasure.
And putting the whole thing together. It's interesting, and your details and insight. I mean, it's a lot. I was taking notes from my own things that stuck out to me that I'd like to look into. But it's wild.
Well, it is wild, guys. I'm going to put I am Stu Littles channel in the description. So if you want to learn tutorials on how to actually video edit on a mobile or a tablet. So if you're just starting out on YouTube or anything like that, and you don't have a computer, you don't need one.
No, you don't need one these days.
LumaFusion is how much?
But 20, £30?
Something like that. I got it. I edited a video of Lee and Rich doing a...
we know what your hobbies are, Ollie. We know what your hobbies are.
An impersonation of... who was it now? Who was it, Lee? Where Rich was the guy from Area 51 and you was the talk show. Art Bell, and the guy from Art... yeah. And it's easy to use. It's great to use, but it's got so many different things on there. And the description it is in the description, people. So go check it out. I am Stu Little, and also the presentation that Stu has kindly took 2 days over for this little video is going to be in this description after the show at some point. Or if,
yeah,
and if you,
it's
if,
on the it's a Lightroom gallery, so it's on Adobe's dime, so you can all go along and download all the images. It's not going to affect me, anything I've got or anything like that. So I'm just going to leave it up there probably 6 months, a year, whatever. I'll forget about it more often than not, and I'll clear it off in 2 years' time. So yeah, anyone who wants to access it, they can do.
Stu, do you think? Are you bothered if people start saying that you're a government shill and that you've made all this up?
I wish it was a government show. I'd be richer.
Trust
I'm
me,
not
you
ri-
wouldn't be. It doesn't pay that well.
Oh, it's not pay that well. Damn it.
Well, mate,
You
if
keep it. No, I mean, I've said my thing. I thought it was interesting when the disclosure team guys popped up with this image. I thought, I know that. I recognize that, you know. And then, as I say, I left them a few comments. Nothing happened of it. Not that I was sort of saying, oh, come on, you're sure in like that. I was just commenting.
you just commented on mine, I told you
Yeah.
to email me.
I commented in Cambian's video, and one of the moderators said, oh, you should email Cambian. So I literally emailed them like a 2-line email saying, hey, if you want to know more about, you know, the Calvine photo, drop us an email. And that was that. Never heard anything from him. And then you were the next one, Ollie, because your video was the next day. And you picked up on that within minutes. And I emailed you, and we've been chatting since. It's been enjoyable.
What can I say? I read the comments, even though I'm dyslexic and can't read them, really. Yeah, so there you go. Stu, mate, it's been a pleasure. People, make sure you go support Stu. Go check out his channel. If you want to learn video editing on a mobile phone or a tablet, he's your man. And if you want to ask him some more questions, you could spam him, because it'll bring traffic to his channel. So just do it anyway, because he's been an absolute sport tonight. It's been a proper top bloke. And I appreciate the work you put into this, mate.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to drop it down below after the show, the full presentation, so any YouTube channel can go check it out. All I ask, if you play anything from the show, just leave a description to both mine and Stu's channel. It's only fair. And the rest of the boys, if you want to do that, but that'd be a massive description. But you're going on GUFON on Saturday night, apparently.
So it seems. I'll talk to Rich about it later.
Yeah, I'm out Saturday night as well, so I'll watch it while I'm having dinner with the missus.
Right, anyway, I'm going to head off because I've got family to sort out, because there's a certain young man still awake and should have been in his bed hours ago, but I think he's been watching it, so I'm going to go and chase him up to his bed. But listen, Lee, Dave, Ollie, thank you very much.
It was lovely to meet you.
It was
Thank you very
wonderful.
much.
It was wonderful.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers,
Bye.
Stu. Thank you, mate. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. And I think I'm going to start with you, Lee, because I want to end the show and have a little chat with you both afterwards. You know, so we can slag off the competition.
Should I take my pants off now, or
no? Leave it 2 minutes.
All right.
Lee, what's going on in the world of Lee? Where can we find you? No. First of all, before we do end it, boys,
what do you want
to it, man?
Just do it. What did you think to that? Now that the Stu's gone,
you know what I think of it. I think it's a picture of something flying in the air with a aeroplane of some sort, some variety around it. I struggle with, and this is coming from a guy. This is coming from a guy that regularly goes on the fucking UFO channel, doesn't believe in fucking aliens. I struggle with the idea that we have made such a quantum leap in technology that 30 years ago, is it 30 years? 20 years, 30 years?
Sorry, Lee, I got put off by that.
Yeah,
30 years.
30 years. Right. I struggle with the idea that if we have or anyone in the world has a giant
penis.
No, has a giant
penis.
Diamond-shaped fucking craft just sitting there in the air. I struggle with whether it's not just the where that technology came from 30 years ago. I struggle with where it's been for the last 30 years.
So I have something to that. If that was a more advanced jet for that time period, that was also the time those big, fast-moving, awesome jets were coming out. They were using different types of targeting systems, radar, laser. That could be a reflecting target.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So it's.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying it's something in the air. I don't know what the hell it is.
So it could have been the same sort of thing we used to talk about with Rich UFO Tech when he used to come on the channel about the ionizing the air or something like that?
No. I'm saying this is a real, like a dirigible, inflatable, metallic, like metallic outside used
Weather
as
balloon.
some kind of, maybe it's an experimental aerial target to be able to see what its lock-ons can do at high speed.
Right?
So
Yeah.
they put a stationary
cool.
target in a low-fly zone.
Yeah.
Can I ask you boys a question?
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this, and I know Stu's going to listen to this after the show. Did you believe Stu? Do you think he
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
There's
No doubt to do it all.
Like you cannot.
I'm glad you're with me on that.
I think the first thing for anyone listening to this that might be scoffing at it, unless you do podcasts and long form content like this, you've no idea how difficult it is to lie for more than half an hour. Like you've no idea how difficult it is to lie. That's why I don't bother trying to lie, because I'm fucking shit at it.
You just need more practice.
He had too many. Right, imagine, how in depth he went into, like we were saying before, about the cameras, about the film, about the fighter jets we were talking about. Imagine rehearsing all that just to come onto a YouTube show to what? At best a few thousand people, few hundred people live. The effort that you would have to put in order to lie,
2 days to do that
is just no, because it's not just. It wouldn't be 2 days. It was 2 days to put the presentation together. Then you've got to think about working out all the possible things we could ask.
Yeah, it's 2 hours. 2 hours of backlog information that you need to be able to audibly recall without notes.
Straight away, yeah. I'm a bit of a fucking freak when it comes to body language as well, and I noticed he looked up a lot when he was remembering stuff. Yep. And that's a sign of actually remembering something. It's when you look down or away or up to the corner is when you're lying. Essentially, you're. I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of that. Well, sorry, I should say I think I know why you're saying that, Dave, because people can hack it and essentially get around doing that.
Well, it's not just that.
You
some
have
people
to be
who do recall look down.
You have to. I feel that when people look down, they're trying to be disingenuous because they don't want to look at people.
I find it's best to, so like when I pressed him on some of the details back, associated with the jets, why are you focused on this? Why are you not like, this seems like a big deal? And he's like, oh, that's just my tick. It's an interesting thing just to throw out as an admission. And I think it is. It's just kind of like he obsessed with the cameras in the film. It's the tech. He's clearly, not only that, if he knows about ramjet technology, that's why I kept bringing it. Like, that's a big, like, that's how many people in the audience know about that?
Yeah, but it makes sense obsessing about the plane because we don't know what the diamond is.
Yeah, and I could see that's how his mind works. That was the point. But again, it's in that press. We also found out there's a nuclear power plant. There's
someone just put in the comments. Someone put in the comments. He basically pulled a Pope. No, because Pope looks like he's lying all the time. And he only does sound bites.
He actually took piss out of the Pope in this presentation. I don't know
if you listen to him, he never said this was a UFO. He thinks this is man-made craft.
Yeah.
He thinks this is experimental tech.
I think
he's not saying this is.
That's the only thing I disagree with him is because
that's where my silly knowledge went about the welding. Sorry, Lee.
Yeah, but that's the only thing I disagree with him is I just again. Unless you're right, Dave, and it's something
could be an experimental airborne target that they were testing,
or what we were saying before about being some sort of like inflatable craft. So if we take away, just for the shits and giggles because it's more fun, take away the mundane explanations like that. If it's actually a craft, people can get in and walk around and fly about in. That I just simply don't believe that we had giant floating diamonds in like 30 years ago. I just don't believe, because, and it's not the fact that of the technology at the time. I feel we'd have seen something else closer now. That would have drifted into private industry, but no, we've still got Bezos's space program, and we've still got Elon Musk's space program, and we're still sending solid fuel rockets into the air. The only difference is now they seem to have iPads instead of buttons. It's I don't see the leap in technology from if that was classified, we'd have something. We didn't have mobile phones then.
And it's
Fuck.
huge.
Yeah.
It's fucking huge.
We did, but
Yeah.
we didn't have mobile phones. We barely had video recorders.
Yeah.
We were still like it when this was out. When this video, for anyone in the UK, I don't know if this drifted its way to America or not, but people still had Betamax videos.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is it's fucking crazy. And the problem is we are looking at this photograph, not this one. I know this is fake, but we're looking at this photograph through the modern lens of today without thinking how fucking wild it was 30 years ago. It's wild now. It would have been out of this fucking world then. Thank you for listening to my TED talk.
I appreciate it.
It's not a mountain, boys. I'm quite good. I'm conscious about time because I know GUFON started his show. Hate to overrun because I'm not a rude little twat. But I'm going to start with Lee. Lee, where can they find you and what you're doing next?
I uploaded a new podcast just today on Must See Audio on the Patreon. It will be going up onto the main feed on Wednesday. Ollie will have made me a thumbnail for it by then. And it was
I made you an overlay, so you don't have to do that anymore.
No, but I need one of us. I need one for our little mashup episode. Right, maybe use that picture of our penises touching. That is definitely fake and not real. So that podcast went up today. I'm gonna put the interview up with the abduction guy. What you did the other week, last week? What's his name?
Steve Pierce.
Yes,
from Travis Walton. Steve Pierce.
Later on during the week,
not Travis Walton, but from the Travis Walton case.
Later on during the week, that podcast will appear on Must See Audio as well. And then I hope to speak to you guys again on Thursday. And we'll do a Must See Audio. That'd be lovely.
Go give Lee some support. And also, he doesn't speak about it a lot, but he does Formula One as well. He's got a good Formula One channel.
Formula One is, you can find that if you like Formula One. That's 3 legs, 4 wheels, and it's me and some other people talking about fast cars.
Thank you, Bobby Dazzler. What's that? You and Lee debunk 4 and like new channels. Lee, help me out here. I've had 5 beers.
Lee and you debunk for. I think he might be asking us to do a debunk channel.
Okay.
I think that'd be fucking hilarious.
We could do that. We could do that, Bobby.
Right? You know how hated GUFON is. Can you imagine if you take the lead off me, how hated we would be?
Yeah. You'd be more hated. You'd be more hated.
Thank you, Heather, for subbing to Must See Audio.
Yeah, Heather's bought us. But Heather, send me a picture of the hubby. Hubby? Not your hubby. Send me a picture of your hoodie. Jesus Christ, how strong are those beers?
That's what I heard.
Dave. Dave.
Sure.
BlackStar Paranormal. Finally, you have a YouTube channel that is ready to kind of launch. It's kind of premature, but
it exists.
You wanted to make the name because you didn't want any motherfucker taking it. It's kind of like in the description, people. Tell us what's happening there.
It exists, as does our website. They exist. I mean, they're built up. They've been there, right? We just hadn't made them public. We got stuff coming at our own pace. We're in no rush.
The channel's there and it's ready.
Yeah. We just got some really interesting technology in, and we got more coming, and then more coming. So, yep.
And you got me in touch with Dave Miller, who got me in touch with.
I didn't do any of that. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you didn't. You're right. Yeah.
It's some other guy.
Guys, go support BlackStar Paranormal. He's not been a supporting alien addict at all, but I just like his face. So go subscribe. and
Definitely works for
hit
years.
the bell, because I think you're going to be quite surprised of what will happen over there. I'm gonna end the show right now because Rich is going live. Friday we have Mike Rogers. Last week we had what's his name? Pierce. What's his name, Dave?
I don't know. That was last week, man. I don't keep up with those guys.
Steve Pierce.
I don't even know who they are.
It deleted from my brain. We had Steve Pierce. That was a very interesting chap, lovely chap, and we've got Mike Rogers this week.
They're best friends, aren't they?
No, they hate each other. I'm gonna ask Mike about that.
Should get them on together. They'd love it.
That's a great idea. Though I might have to pay them.
You will absolutely have to pay them both. Yes.
Good night, God bless people. Mind the bugs out by I'm Alien Addict. Make sure you subscribe to Must See Audio, GUFON Radio, and BlackStar Paranormal, and also Stu Littles that is in the description below, because he's been an absolute gem tonight. And I will put the presentation shortly in the description, people. But it might be in the next hour or so, so don't hold me to it. Good night, God bless. Bye-bye.